Hello, and welcome to Murder Mystery Haunted History. We cover a little bit of true crime, a little bit of paranormal, and from time to time, we cover the history of true crime and paranormal. If you're new here and that sounds interesting to you, please hit that subscribe button. It helps to get us out there and let other people find us. And we really appreciate it. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much. I know you know how much you truly mean to me throughout these years. All right, so today's content is about the Idaho University Murdered 4. We are covering the November 23rd press release. We're also going to talk a little bit about some information I found on why the roommates might not have heard anything. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about Kaylee's family. I had hoped to get this video out much sooner. In fact, I recorded it, tried editing it 5 different times, and for some reason it wouldn't produce. So I apologize. This is just going to be a catch-up video and not such an in-depth video just because of how late it's having to come out. So let's jump in. The first thing we're going to talk about is connected to our last video. In the last video I put out, we talked about the size of the house and that might be why the other roommates that survived didn't hear anything. And I still think that's true. But I found another little piece of information that talks about another reason why they might not have heard anything. And when you put those two things together, I think that it's helpful to understand. And these roommates are getting a lot of slack. So I think that we need to take this into consideration. So this piece of information comes from retired Detective Phil Waters, who had a 96% clearance rate on homicide cases when he was with the Houston Police Department. He was asked about how it was possible for the 2 other roommates to walk away and to have not heard anything. And he said, and I quote, "The use of an edged weapon is going to prevent any kind of real sound that would have awakened the other 2 girls. If this person was, and it appears that they were, proficient with an edged weapon, the deaths would have occurred so quickly that they would have had no opportunity to cry out." So I thought that really explained, between that and the size of the house, how these roommates didn't hear anything. And so I think these roommates have gotten so much slack for not hearing anything and not doing more that, you know, we just really need to take into consideration all the facts. And yes, this detective is not with the Moscow Police Department, and I know he's not directly involved, but he's a very reliable source. And I've tried on this channel to only provide for this case information from the Moscow Police Department or the family, but I do want to provide any information from reliable sources that I can as well. And I think this is a pretty reliable source. So just take that into consideration when thinking about things as well, please. All right, so the next thing that I want to jump into is I want to talk about Kaylee's family. So Kaylee's family does not agree with the police department right now. They are kind of really upset or not seeing eye to eye with the police department as far as they don't feel like they're being informed by the police on what's going on. They've had to call and tell the police what's going on. Kaylee's sister is the one who found the the Grub truck video. So the Grub truck surveillance video that's out there, that was found by Kaylee's sister. She sat there for hours scrubbing through that video until she found her sister in that video and then turned that into the police. So she's the one that found the last, videos of her sister. She's also the one that found the ring camera of her sister coming home that night, which, according to her sister on that ring camera came home at 1:56. the police timeline for her sister coming home is 1:45, which the police releasing that 1:45 time and asking everyone to check their security cameras around that area. They're asking people to check the security cameras at 1:45. If she came home at 1:56, they're asking people to check the wrong time. And Kaylee's sister's very upset about that. And being that she's the one that found all of this footage and stuff, she would know more than anyone, why down to the minute is so important on finding this footage. So I understand her frustration with the police at that. She also is the one who found the Uber driver by going through the digital trail on her sister's phone and her sister's apps. She found the Uber driver and put the police in contact with the Uber driver that brought her sister home. So she's done a lot of the detective work for the police. And to not be being kept in the loop or given more information than the public's being given, I understand her frustration. So when asked if Kaylee was the intended target, because that's kind of been a rumor that's been out there, Kaylee's father, brother, and sister were the ones being interviewed in this particular interview, and they said that they had heard that rumor, but they could not confirm or deny that because they, like the rest of the public, have not been told that by the police. So they don't have an answer for that. Kaylee's mother has made a public statement saying that she believes that Kaylee's killer is a friend of Kaylee's and that she knew her killer and that she even believes that the killer may be at the candlelight vigil. When Kaylee's father was asked about this in the interview, Kaylee's father said that that's pure speculation, but that Kaylee was a very popular girl and was very nice to everyone, and so that may not be far from the truth. So that was kind of their answer as to whether or not Kaylee knew her killer. And so that kind of rounds up what Kaylee's family has said so far. They're not real happy. Kaylee's sister especially is not very happy. And Kaylee's sister has done a lot of the police work as far as a lot of where some of this information that the police have has come from. So I thought that was important to get out there because the victims' voices are going to be heard most through their families. Okay, so we're just going to go over really quickly a couple of things from the November 23rd police press release, just a couple of the highlights. Since I didn't get the video out as quickly as I wanted to, again, I apologize. So here's a quick couple of statements to clear up any rumors and just kind of let you know how much police force and what they have collected so far. So we've heard it stated that Kaylee may have had a stalker. They have been looking into that, but up until this point, they have been unable to collaborate this, but they do continue to seek tips regarding that report. On that note, I did forget to mention that Kaylee's family in their interview also said that they absolutely did not believe that Kaylee had a stalker. They were very, very close. In fact, Kaylee's sister said that she spoke to Kaylee all the time, and that if she FaceTimed Kaylee for hours on end every day, and that if Kaylee had a stalker, she believed Kaylee would have told her. So she does agree with the police on that Kaylee probably didn't have a stalker, but who knows? So police say if there's any more tips on Kaylee's stalker, please send any reports on that and any tips on that to the police. The 911 call was placed on one of the surviving roommates' phones, and multiple friends that were at the home spoke with the 911 operator during that call. No suspects have been named or arrested. They continue to look for what they believe to be a fixed blade knife used in the murders. None of the names of the 911 callers has been released, and the 911 call itself has not been released. And that's important to remember because there's a lot of false narratives out there that the 911 callers' names are out there or that the 911 call is out there. It's not. Any online reports of being tied and gagged are false. So the Moscow Police Department resources involved in this case are 4 detectives, 24 patrol officers, 5 support staff dedicated to this investigation. The FBI has 22 investigators in Moscow, 20 additional agents assigned in various locations, as well as 2 members of the Behavioral Analysis Unit. Idaho State Police has 20 investigators, a public information team, a forensic service and crime scene team, 15 uniformed troopers who have been valuable in providing community and safety patrols. Kendrick Willis gets up and speaks and says, "No tip is too small. We encourage anyone that can provide this to please provide this. It can help solve the case." The lead agency in this case is the Moscow Police Department with Chief Fry. Idaho State Police's role is to support them and their good work. He went on to explain how they handle these cases from beginning through so that people can maybe better understand why it's taking some time with this case to come up with answers, such as why forensics takes time to come back and that they're not willing to sacrifice speed for quality. At this time, the crime scene, they have collected 103 pieces of individual evidence, approximately 4,000 photographs. They've conducted multiple 3D scans of the residence. They have hundreds of hours used by investigators and detectives, including the forensic team from multiple agencies. They've processed over 1,000 total tips, and they've conducted 150 interviews. They ask the public to remain patient as the investigation unfolds. Kendrick Willis has been in contact with Idaho Governor Brad Little throughout this investigation, and he's making available up to $1 million for expenses related to this ongoing investigation. Governor Little is deeply saddened by the loss of these bright and young lives, and he's making sure that the state of Idaho provides the resources possible to ensure the person or persons responsible for this are brought to justice. The University of Idaho President Scott Green gets up and he speaks about the plans for the candlelight vigil on November 30th, and the details can be found on the university's website. I'm going to include that at the end of this video because there's also a light the night, and I think that if anyone that is watching this could also light the night from your home on November 30th, that would be amazing support. I also want to talk about Deputy City Supervisor with the City of Moscow, Tyler Palmer. He got up and spoke and was so emotional. I want to try to include a clip, but each time I've tried to include a clip, it has messed up the video. But if I can, I'll put it in here.
Moscow's my home. And I know we won't be defined by tragedy, but how we respond to it. We mourn the loss of these beautiful young people, and we will relentlessly pursue justice on their behalf. Thank you.
It was very emotional because this was his hometown, and I think in a way the innocence of this town has been taken by what has happened, and his emotions could be felt through the screen. I'm sure his emotions were felt throughout the room, and that's kind of how everybody, I think, is feeling there. They go ahead and they start all the questions with the journalist, and there's several questions that were very, very good questions. One thing I want to highlight is there was a question about a case that happened in Salem, that 2 people were stabbed in their home. It's an unsolved case. That was asked if the chief knew about that and if he thought it was linked. The chief said that they were looking into it, that he did know about it, and they do not think it is linked from what I have seen reported now. Since this was asked and new reports that have come out now, they do not think this case is linked to that case. That question was asked, though, at this November 23rd question. There was also a question about the knife being linked to ROTC. which is terrifying because if it was linked to the ROTC program, there are several students through ROTC that would have that same knife. So that's an interesting concept and thought and something to keep in mind. They ask if one of the journalists asked if, let me find the question here. One of the journalists had a really, really good question. Here we go. Can you give any insight to the possibility that the murder weapon is linked to the ROTC program? And also you mentioned the analysis unit is here. Would we be able to get anything from them about a working profile and the possibility of anything on a note that you have ruled out the possibility that the killer might be a female? So this person had not only great questions, but multiple questions. And while they were trying to answer those questions, then they came in with more questions. So it got kind of confusing to really kind of keep up with their answers and so on and so forth. But the analysis unit builds profiles based off of all the information that's coming in. So they continually, throughout the whole case, build a profile of who the person is. Like, do they think the person sits home and plays video games? Are they a person that goes out to bars? On who the killer is. And they build this profile. And so this journalist was asking, do you think they're going to release this profile? Because in a lot of cases, if they don't have a good enough lead, they'll release the profile. And the chief doesn't really say they'll release the profile yet. He says the BA unit is working diligently to do what they do. Will that be provided? I'm sure that that may be once the conclusion of this case comes, but they are continually taking in reports and information for that. So it doesn't say they'll release it. It doesn't also answer whether or not they think the killer may be female, so that's interesting. And as far as the ROTC program, doesn't really answer about that either. So I found it interesting that most of the answers on the questions were on that particular journalist's questions, which were some really good questions, went unanswered. There was questions about the cars that were being searched. There's some speculation from some people about the cars being searched this past week. Is there any speculation you can help squash? Is there anything you can share specifically on the white car out front? Some of those vehicles belong to the victims and some belong to the people in the house. And for us, that was part of the crime scene, as I mentioned earlier. We wanted to make sure that those were looked at prior to releasing those as part of the investigation that night. So I think that's any additional information you can offer about the candlelit vigil? Anything, and like I told you, the police press release that was of video here, and you guys can check that out. So I will try to pop on. Pretty much sums up quicker next time, and hopefully anything won't run into any police press release that was of major importance. My apologies for the delay on getting this one out. I will try to pop on. Hug your family quicker a little tighter tonight. And hopefully the video wishing you all won't run into any hiccups with the video. Much love. Next. Bye for now.